Hey, my name's Sian, and today I'm going to do a little walkthrough of Squarespace Fluid Engine. This is a new update to the platform that has just recently launched. It's going to change the way we design in Squarespace. I did the beta test for this 2 or 3 months ago, which was pretty fun to get a little sneak peek on it and start playing around with it and give them some feedback for it, which was cool. So they've also made some pretty solid updates since I did that, some of which was kind of suggestions I made. So I'm also assuming that a lot of other people in the beta test made the same comments, which is cool to see that they kind of take the feedback on board from that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm going to do like a quick walkthrough of what's changed, if you're not familiar or you want to see like what the difference is going to be, and then I'm going to go over what I like about it and what I'm not sure about. I'm not going to do like a full-on tutorial or like get super in depth with any of this. This is kind of just like overview and like initial thoughts, because this is just recently launched, so there's going to be a lot of updates and stuff to come. So I'm sure I'll have like future versions of this video where I kind of review it again once there's more updates and shit happened with it. So yeah, I'm going to use this. This is a website that I just recently created to kind of use for this video. And it's also going to be a new Squarespace design kit template that I'm going to sell in my shop. I have a shop called Good as Gold where I sell all kinds of design resources, including Squarespace design kits. So eventually this will be a new template in there, but I kind of wanted to start with what I have. Like I was going to wait until I had at least like a full page finished for this template, but I was like, it doesn't really matter. Like I kind of just want to share my thoughts and like show you where it's at, show you kind of what I've been messing around with. And yeah, so like I said, this is not finished at all. I just kind of started playing around with it. So first we can start by kind of showing you what's different. Overall, like nothing in the settings has changed. It's just how you design on the page that is quite different. So this is only going to apply if you have a Squarespace website on 7.1. If you're still on Squarespace 7, none of this will apply. That's also like a completely different topic, like Squarespace 7 versus 7.1. If you're not sure, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll put a link in the description to a Squarespace article where you can read a little bit more info and you can find out which version you have. So yeah. Oops. So overall, the way they've changed it is now they've basically introduced a new grid system, which if I push the letter G on my keyboard, it's going to bring up the grid on all of the sections. So we still edit the sections in the same way we did in 7.1 before, but now we have the introduction of this grid. I'll come down here where I've got some content. So we can edit the format of this grid, so we can change how many rows we've got, and we can also change the gap between the grid, so you can have no gap if you want to have like blocks of content right next to each other, kind of like I've got down here, which is a work in progress. But like if you want to have blocks right next to each other, you need to have no spacing, because as we can see, like when you still add blocks of content in pretty much the exact same way. Like all of these are still the same, but when you add content, it's still going to snap to the grid. So like you can see, you can't place it like anywhere in the middle of nowhere, because that just wouldn't work. So I think having this grid that it still kind of locks to is really good. So yeah, we can see that it like kind of, as you move shit around, it'll kind of like pick up that grid, which is good. One other thing that we can do that's really cool is that we can layer content blocks now. So we can see I've got the scrolling block sitting behind my image here. And you can layer, I mean, maybe there is a limit to how many things you can layer on top of each other, but you can layer like multiple things on top of each other if you wanted. Like I could have another image on the top. I could put like a button on the top. So yeah, that's definitely a big game changer, being able to layer content right within Squarespace. Like previously, it was kind of a lot of working around to do that. Like you had to either use code or like use design it in another program like Photoshop or Adobe XD or whatever, and then chuck it in here. So this update is taking out a lot of the kind of need for other programs to do a lot of this stuff. Like for like very extensive customization, you're still going to need code and you're still going to want to do stuff in like Photoshop or XD. But this just gives us way more creative freedom than we've had in Squarespace before, which is pretty rad. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing, is like this introduction of the grid, being able to layer content, and yeah. So they've also added some other minor things like on text boxes. If I go down to this one, turn off the grid. One thing we can do is click edit, and we can add background, a background color to text boxes, which is pretty sick. Then we can do the corner radius, and we can also mess around with the padding of the text box, which is sweet. So that's pretty rad. I believe this feature has also been added to just all 7.1 websites, whether you're using Fluid Engine or not, I think. So that's pretty awesome. There's some other like minor updates they've added, but that's kind of the overall gist. So it's quite a big difference from before, where we kind of were like, I guess it was a bit of a grid system where you could like arrange the blocks and stuff, but it was pretty like, it started to feel just a bit clunky and limiting. Whereas this is kind of the opposite of that. It's like fluid engine, like I guess it's very fluid, like you can kind of get a lot more creative with it, and yeah, just have more fun with it. So that's kind of the basic overview. Like I said, this is not a full-on tutorial about how to do it and how to design in it. That's just a very basic overview of how it works. So I can go over some of the things I like about it. So, like I said, way more design freedom. I think this is something I was pretty stoked about, just because I feel like I've been designing Squarespace websites for like 5 to maybe like 7. I would probably say 7 or 8 years ago was when I first started doing Squarespace, and it's the only platform I've really focused on for the last 5+ years after I stopped using WordPress and stuff like that. So this is pretty rad to have this much creative freedom. I feel like I was getting pretty bored with the amount of customization I could do without the need for like a shit ton of code. Like, I'm not against using code. I think it's awesome. But I just don't, like, I want to do as much as I can without it. That's one of the reasons I love Squarespace so much, and I think it's become so massive, is that, like, anyone who's, like, been in the online world for a while, like, you'll know how clunky WordPress got, and you couldn't do anything without a developer, and it was just, like, a fucking nightmare by the time I decided I was done with it. So anyway, yeah, having this much creative freedom is awesome. As a designer who like loves to create really interesting, unique layouts, it's going to be sick to have this level of freedom in Squarespace. And what else do I have? The mobile editing, which is another big thing they have changed, is, so basically now we can edit the mobile design separately to the desktop design. So I haven't played around with this a ton yet, but I know for a fact, like, this is one of the biggest things a lot of Squarespace designers have struggled with over the years, was the fact that you couldn't really edit much on the mobile design without code, which again isn't a bad thing, but it just ends up taking a bit of time, and it's just not as intuitive as being able to like click something and move it, you know? So that is kind of a big update. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of manage this, because I think right now it does automatically place all the content for you on mobile. I believe it orders the mobile content like in the order you placed it on the page, maybe. So it can get a bit clunky, and I feel like this is going to be an issue for people who aren't designers, to be honest. Because like we can see already, I haven't touched this mobile version, but we can already see that like there's no spacing like at the top and the bottom, which I feel like some people might not really notice. Like there definitely needs to be more spacing here. Basically, I think it's really good that we can edit the mobile version, but at the same time, it's going to be like the opposite problem for non-designers, which I guess kind of leads me to the stuff that I'm not sure about, which is, it's kind of wild. Like I feel like everything about this update, like everything I love about it that makes it sick, has an exact flip side, like opinion, really. So the fact that there is so much creative freedom is awesome for designers, like I said. And I think that's also going to make templates and design kits way more valuable, because people are going to have a way harder time designing shit from scratch if they're not a designer and they don't know how to create layouts. But I think, yeah, like people who aren't designers are gonna struggle with this way more, because we also don't have the image layouts. So like in 7.1 or 7, you probably have seen the image layout blocks, like the collage block and the stack block and all those kinds of things, which I use a lot. Like they came in super handy all the time for like every website I've done. I use them a lot because they're kind of like pre-designed layouts that just look good, and my clients can easily change them and they just work. So those don't exist in this new update. But of course, like we can create those layouts. Like we can create a collage block with like a big image and then the text box over the top. But we have to do that from scratch. And like for non-designers who don't know, like I said, maybe don't have an understanding of spacing and like hierarchy and text and all of that, like someone who doesn't know design, to design that from scratch is maybe not going to be as easy. So that's kind of the flip side of this. Like like how, as someone who like uses this as part of my business for both one-on-one work with clients, designing Squarespace websites, and then also selling the templates and design kits, once we've done our thing, like design the template or design a client website, like once we hand it off to them, it does kind of make you wonder if this is going to require us to kind of loosely educate people on how to design shit. Like, because without it, I don't know, like do we just tell people like just duplicate a page that's already there and like don't move anything? Or yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about, is just how we approach it when it comes to handing off websites that we've spent a lot of time on, like how we hand it off to the client and also give them everything they need to make it to help keep it consistent and like retain the integrity that we intended to have when we designed it, you know? So that's kind of, it's so hard because like that's the exact thing that I'm so excited about with this. It's like so much creative freedom, and then also how do we make sure that in the long term the people that we hand these off to know how to make shit look good, and a program that now doesn't give them as many like guidelines or parameters. So, and I believe that it might be a hot topic with a lot of other designers who also use Squarespace quite a lot, just like figuring out how we're gonna manage that. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing, I think. And then let me see if I wrote anything else. Yeah, that's kind of the main gist. And like I said, it will be interesting to see. Like, I do believe, at first I was trying to kind of get my head around how this would affect people who sell Squarespace templates, because there's a lot now. And like, at least for now, my thought is that, like I said, I think it's going to make templates and design kits way more valuable, because people are going to need a lot more help designing really sick websites from scratch. Like, it'd be like Showit or like any other platform that you can design a website from scratch. It's like almost impossible without a template, right? Like, as a non-designer, even as a designer, it's like freaking hard to design something completely from scratch sometimes. And that's what was kind of good about the last version of Squarespace. For like, it was good for a period of time, and then it kind of gets limiting. But when you have complete freedom, it's almost too much. And like, having some kind of parameters to work with is good, because you know kind of where the boundaries are. So you're like, okay, I can do this, but how can I get creative with that? So with this update, we still don't have 100% creative freedom. Like, a couple things that I don't think they have are like a rotate button, so you can't rotate any content you put on there. You also can't change the text size. I'm just looking at my notes because I wrote a couple things. You can't, right, like you can't specifically change the text size to a certain size. Like, you still have to choose one of the, let me show you, like one of these 4 settings. That you can't just say like, I want this text to be like size 60 or whatever. Like, you still have to choose one of these. You can, of course, do that with code. But yeah, you also can't, there's no ability to add simple shapes, which maybe you don't need. I was thinking about that, because like, originally my thought with that piece of feedback was like, okay, so what if I want to like add a box behind this text? Like, that's why I would mostly need to add a shape. Like, I don't want to add fucking circles and like stars and shit everywhere. But I'm like, what if I want like a background behind this text? And then they added that to the text box. And then one of the other things, like, I've designed in Showit a little bit, like, there's no option to add a button. Like, you have to add the rectangle and then add the text over the top, and then like link those together and then link those. But here, obviously, you have the button. So part of me wonders if maybe there's no need for like a shape block right now. So yeah, I think it's really good. Like, overall, I'm more excited than I am like pissed off or worried about it. It's definitely still in the kind of intro stages of all of this, so I'm sure there'll be updates to come, and I'm sure there'll be like future versions of this video where I would love to do more like in-depth tutorials and walkthroughs and stuff of how to use it and like how to create really cool layouts. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. and like what feedback they take on board and everything. So yeah, those are kind of my overall thoughts. Like I said, I didn't want to go super in depth with this or make this super long, so I'm trying to like keep this pretty short. But I wanted to share just where I'm at with it, since a few people have asked. So yeah, overall, mostly pretty stoked about it, and I'm very keen to start designing templates for it, even though I don't think I'm going to launch one anytime soon, just because I feel like there's still a few things I need to iron out before I would feel comfortable like fully using it for a client site or for a template. But yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome. I feel like I've heard through the grapevine they've got a lot of hate for it, but like, I don't know, everyone's gonna get hate for everything at some point. Like, I think it's pretty solid, and yeah, I'm stoked to play around with it. So if you have any specific questions about the update, or if you have like thoughts you want to share, if you're a designer or just someone who uses the platform a lot, if you have some thoughts you want to throw in the comments, I would love to hear them, because I love just hearing where you guys are at and your experiences with stuff like this. And yeah, hopefully we'll share some more thoughts and tutorials and stuff on Squarespace in the future. But those are my like very brief Fluid Engine first thoughts. And yeah, I will leave it at that. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.